So, hello everybody, good afternoon. My name is Nathalie Stephen. I'm really happy to be with you this afternoon to welcome the EUROGI members for this webinar organized by Women in Copernicus, this seventh version of the webinar in the series. And we are really happy to welcome Monica Sebillo and Marion Murphy today to talk about the policy focus group that has been created in EUROGI, talking about women in geographic information to promote gender equality in the GI sector. So I'm really happy to talk about the two speakers today that are quite often collaborating with us since the start of our project in Women in Copernicus. Monica Sebillo is an associate professor in information processing system at the Department of Computer Science at the University of Salerno in Italy. She did a degree in applied mathematics and computer science, and she is president of the IMFM GIS in Italia and member of EUROGI Association. Of course, she collaborates with a lot of international research projects, international institutions, also with primary and secondary schools, so interested in education and geo-education initiative. And she's writing a lot of research paper in journals and conferences. So, Monica, I will leave you the floor if you can take it and tell us about this focus group.
Thank you, Annalise. Thank you, Natalie. And okay, I try to share my screen. Okay. Okay, can you see it? Okay. Perfect, thank you. Well, I'd like to thank Women in Copernicus for the invitation we received and we accept with pleasure. Last week, just to start, last week, this news attracted my attention, so I decided to share it with you. This is the international tennis games held the last week in Italy, and this news attracted my attention about the gender gap, also in this case, also in the sport field. However, the Women in Geographic Information Focus Group was established in September and represents one of the activities carried out under the ambit of the EUROGI policy portfolio. EUROGI stands for European Umbrella Organization for Geographic Information. It is an open and inclusive organization that dates back to 1993. Initially, it was promoted to support and develop at European level the use of application technologies related to geographic information, develop research and project of European interest, and contribute to define a European policy to realize European geographic information infrastructure. Thus, it represents the common interest of the European geographic information community. In May 1994, 17 founding members and 7 observers met at the first formal meeting of EUROGI. And for the first two years, EUROGI was supported by European Commission funding. After that, EUROGI became independent and non-aligned European organization, network on networks, funded by its members who are now public organization, private companies, and also industry and non-profit NGO, non-profit organization. In 2020, EUROGI started a renewal, as described in its strategic plan document, which led to the definition of a sector portfolio, including the policy portfolio that supports the Women in GI focus group. I'm a member of the EUROGI EXCOM, and I remember that I was sending my apologies because I couldn't attend a meeting, and I wrote, I would like to talk about women geographic information in our next thematic section, and of the organization. And well, we are here, and, and this is our presence here is the result of that proposal that has turned into a focus group around which a network of women sharing similar goals has been built. And this was the first goal. Since September, we have already had the opportunity to present this focus group in other events. And each time I have stressed that it was almost a natural, spontaneous need to ask myself if what was happening to me and around me was also happening to other women involved in the GI sector and more generally in ICT. As Natalie said, I am an associate professor at the computer science department. And in this field, the number of women involved in research and teaching activities is decreasing considerably, even if not in homogeneous, constant way. And this initial impression, this trend was confirmed by the European Commission report, Women in Digital Era, that talks about an EU average declining in ICT since 2006. A real collapse that, according to the Commission, European Commission, is very difficult to explain. In fact, the study found that despite the growing demand of ICT specialists, digital profiles, the percentage of Europeans with ICT-related education is decreasing. And although this is a common trend for both genders, there are lesser women than men who are choosing ICT-related jobs and education. Even tighter numbers for top body of public institution, few women with responsibility, and the lowest value is found in the university. As for the private sector, similar scenarios. In Italy, for example, a specific law in this regard forces the boards of directors to balance the presence of women and men. There is one woman for two men. But it is a law. We don't know what was the scenario would be without this obligation. We can imagine. And also, let me recall the Bloomberg Gender Equality Index, that it is an index that monitors company policies and initiatives undertaken in favor of gender equality in companies. And the index of this year includes 380 companies across 50 industries in 44 countries and regions. So it would be interesting to try to understand the main reason of this phenomenon that had such a deep impact in the past and still has it on the present situation and on the future we can imagine. Let us consider that the annual productivity loss for the European economy due to women leaving their digital jobs to become inactive is calculated to be about 16 billion euros. And McKinsey Global Institute, by examining 15 indicators of gender equality in 95 countries, has calculated that by reducing the gender gap in the workplace between now and 2025, the world gross domestic product could rise to $67 trillion, almost 26% higher than the current hypothesis. So we can say that gender equality is not only a question, a matter of social justice, it also has a positive impact on the economy. And this link is also evident in the 5th sustainable goal of the Agenda 2030, which is specifically addressed to the achievement of gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls. And here we can find an explicit reference to the sustainable economy. A gender perspective is needed in the design of medium and long-term investment proposals so that they can have a positive effect on economic and social recovery. So, sorry, in this context, the aim of EUROGI is twofold. First, get in touch with networks of women involved in the European geospatial sector who share opportunities and experiences. EUROGI aims to acquire knowledge from innovative as well as consolidated scenarios to outline a general view of the current context, also in terms of existing good practices. And secondly, EUROGI aims to contribute to the development of policy positions which can be used by EUROGI and other organizations to promote gender equality within their own organization. So what EUROGI is doing to achieve this goal? Seminars, like webinar and other initiatives like this to let people know the mission of this focus group, that is gender is not an obstacle to success in geographic information profession. Quite the contrary, a gender perspective is useful to bridge the gap between the formal approach that is typically followed introduced by men and the one oriented to human dynamics proposed by women. And also the editing of a position paper with two goals: depicting the current situation by collecting statistical data through a survey we are preparing, and defining a set of principles and guidelines to promote gender equality. In particular, the EUROGI position paper has a focus on a set of principles and policies, as shown in this slide. Education. Education is the most effective way to face the idea that ICT careers are inherently masculine. To break down the existing stereotypes, and it is important to introduce young girls to the female figures who have made history and are building the future of ICT, in particular of the GI sector. Let me also recall that the geography paved the way for women in science, and through geography, science became an acceptable part of the education of the American girl during the post-colonial schoolrooms. Mentorship, obviously, visibility of women in leadership roles is crucial when envisioning personal success and paths for career advancement. Typically, women are underrepresented at both level, and it is a valid reason to build equality and representation at this level. Networking, obviously, groups of women sharing knowledge, forum promoting gender equality, association encouraging women to showcase their success. These are all examples of opportunities to build networks promoting high placing women and support women's leadership success. Inclusiveness, obviously, two principles are fundamental for people involved in this focus group: inclusiveness and involvement of all parties. As a matter of fact, we need the cultural change we needed to achieve the 5th goal of the agenda should be supported by people regardless of their gender. The only women stereotype is no more winning. Anyone, a woman or man, can advise and support young people to grow personally and professionally. Scientific research. It's important to recognize that the rule of gender as a criterion to evaluate the content of scientific research. Horizon 2020 represented an important step forward, both conceptual and political, because it established that the integration of a gender perspective improves the scientific quality and social relevance of knowledge and innovation produced. Just a few details about the survey we are preparing. We are going to disseminate three typologies depending on the contributor involved: public organization, private companies, and research institutions. In addition to a core of common questions about the subject taking the survey, a session is addressed to collect data about the distribution of personnel in terms of woman and men ratio in general, and with respect to the management rule, the average age of women in managerial role, years of experience, and finally their educational background. And this data is also required with respect to the full-time and part-time employment. This last request allows us to understand how gender equality policies work. In fact, the last section, you can see it, is specifically conceived to collect data about policies and programs adopted to promote women's career and professional growth, other than those established at the national level. For example, actions to support conciliation between working life and family life, or other policies to promote gender equality. For example, human resource management inspired by the principle of enhancing differences, guarantee equal opportunity, and inclusiveness. These are our contact, my email, my personal email, and the website where information about this focus group can be found. And obviously, the previous this slide showed only some question specifically conceived, for example, for the public organization, slightly different for private companies and different for university, for example. In that case, we collect data about education, teaching geospatial field courses, number of students, female students, and also number of female undergraduate students on that course, and so on, to have a wide view as possible about the distribution of students attending geospatial courses. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you very much for sharing with us this kind of survey that is also a kind of thing that we know quite well in Women in Copernicus. I think it's a nice way to better understand what the women and the girls are doing, choosing in their career. So as the format usually in webinar of Women in Copernicus, after the presentation of this focus group, we are happy to welcome Marion Murphy, who is a kind of testimonial of what EUROGI is doing, because Marion is working from a private company. So we have the two versions, the universities and the private. Marion is managing director at Marion Technology Limited. Sorry, she is really engaged in her company and growing company because of the geographic information services in Ireland, and she is also executive committee member of EUROGI, if I say it correctly, so EUROGI in Ireland, and then member of EUROGI. She's holding a degree in technology management, so also IT specialist. And Marion, you are, I thank you very much for being with us today, and you have the floor. I leave you the talk.
Thank you, Natalie. And I'd just like to say thank you to Monica that went before me, and also the Women in Copernicus team for giving us the opportunity to take part in the Women in GI discussion today and part of this excellent webinar series. We're very happy to be here. So as Natalie said, my name is Marion Murphy. I am one of the many women in the GI sector in Ireland and across Europe. I have worked in the industry for over 25 years, which I don't really like admitting, but it is true. I suppose my current role is Managing Director at Malin Technology, and we are an SME company based in Ireland, as I said earlier. And Malin Technology is a corporate member of EUROGI, so that means that I'm now involved with Monica and the Women in GI policy group. So for all of those reasons, the fact that I am a woman in the GI sector, I have a managing director role, so I have a senior decision-making role. I have obviously a really keen interest in the gender imbalance at senior levels in the GI sector, particularly because it affects me directly, and it has affected me in my journey towards this role. So I suppose I've observed over the long 25 years, I have observed the GI sector change immensely in terms of technology. Technology is completely different to when I started back in the mid-90s. Obviously as well, GI is everywhere, it's ubiquitous, it's way more mainstream, it's not as niche as it was back then. But the one thing that I haven't really seen is a change in the role of women in senior leadership in the sector. I think that, in my opinion and in my experience, the limited visibility of women in senior management roles and managing director roles is often seen as an abnormal, like women succeeding and being in those roles is often seen as an abnormality. Being female managing director in this industry is quite unusual in Ireland in particular, and often I get comments on it, or people aren't expecting that I'm the managing director when they meet me. Like, for example, I know in Ireland in particular, I only know of 2 other women in similar role in the sector, which is a bit shocking really, considering that everything else in the sector has advanced so much. So I'd like to discuss maybe the Irish context today. We are quite a small country, and we don't have huge GI sector in comparison to some other European member states. However, it's significant and it's there for quite a while. So in saying that, though, we don't really have any research or any data available on the gender gap in the GI sector in Ireland. So instead, I thought we'd maybe just take a look at how Ireland ranks in the Global Gender Gap Index. So as of 2020, Ireland ranks 7th in the Global Gender Gap Index, which is a bit of a mouthful, 7th out of 153 countries. So in fact, we've actually climbed 2 positions since the previous report in 2016. Now, if you drill down into those figures, well, first of all, that doesn't look too bad. Maybe we're very progressive. Maybe we don't really have much of an issue in terms of gender gap, because we're 7th in the global gap index for such a small country. However, if you dig down deeper into those rankings, you would see that Ireland ranks pretty well in terms of secondary education. We're a parity. We have continued to reduce the gap in terms of economic participation and opportunity for women. But when you look at the figures for representation of women on boards, it's 17.6% to be precise, which is less than 1 in 4, which is less than the typical figure that I have spoken about in previous webinars on this topic. So we're actually really not that great at all. So it's not so impressive at all. So maybe we can explore this, and maybe we can just see, well, does this even matter? Does it matter if an organization is profitable, is perceived to be doing well, performing well? Well, it doesn't matter if women are not represented at board level. Well, in my opinion, it really does matter, and I'm sure you agree with me. The lack of gender diversity it really has an opportunity cost. So it carries an opportunity cost for an organization. Balanced teams make better decisions. Women bring a whole lot of different things to the table, bring different skills, perspective, experience. So why shouldn't they be represented at board level? They should be represented at every level in the organization because they are part of an organization. So diverse teams are proven to outperform their peers. Teams that are gender balanced make better decisions. It's found to be that they're more collaborative, they have better sense of belonging, listen to each other, and have a higher sense of trust. Now, all of these are extremely desirable in terms of, an organization retaining employees and developing their teams. So this, to me, is, as I call it, a no-brainer. So research by Deloitte suggests companies that with an inclusive culture are 6 times more likely to be innovative, and therefore better equipped to make to reach financial targets. So if this is the case, we could ask ourselves, like, can a board of directors afford to overlook the benefits of gender balance? I don't think so. So in terms then of our role of leaders, so employees feeling included. So realistically here, we need to, for employees to feel included, how can we change this? How can we make sure there's influential leaders and that leaders can influence change? So inclusive leaders cast a long shadow. Research shows that behavior of our leaders can drive up to 70% of the difference between the proportion of employees that feel highly included and those that do not feel included. So inclusive leaders help to drive team performance by plus 17%, as per Deloitte 2018 Diversity and Inclusion Revolution article. Decision-making, increase the quality of decision-making by up to 20% and increase collaboration by up to 29%. All very good. So organizations need to ensure that there is sufficient rungs on the ladder for career progression. This is to help women to climb into management positions. Women need to be able to see career progression. They need, in order to be able to be attracted to the roles and to maintain, to keep women in the sector, there needs to be greater representation throughout the leadership roles. Role models serve as our examples, as our heroes, as our guides. So for women, having other women to look up to can be crucial when envisioning and pursuing success. As it has been said, if you can see it, you can be it. Relatable managers and leaders. Drawing from my own experience here at Malin Technology, our previous managing director was a woman. This meant that for me, I could, I felt it was very relatable, that I could see myself in the role. I was very much supported. It wasn't an unusual thing in our organization. And to be fair, before I even went for the role, it was something that I had considered, that if it came up, that I would definitely go for it. Mentors, as I think Monica had previously mentioned, mentors as well. Mentors can be from inside or outside the organization. I've had a number of mentors throughout my time, throughout my career, from my early 20s on, and I still have some now. I really value them. I think it doesn't have to be a woman, it can be male advocate. I've had both throughout my career, as I said. I've been very lucky that I've learned a lot from them. They have definitely, as I've progressed in my career, given me the confidence to go for management roles or to continue outside my comfort zone. And move forward with my career. There's great sounding boards if you come to a point where you feel that you need extra advice. They're great sounding boards for that as well. Also, mentors I found have generally, their network becomes your network. They're more than happy to introduce you to other people. They're more than happy to help you out. I have been a mentor for a number of staff in my organization and outside the organization, and I have to say it's extremely rewarding. I'm sure that anybody in Women in Copernicus as well has probably found similar experience. So I suppose as well as that, we have raising the profile of our stars. I'm a firm believer that women in all organizations should be encouraged to participate in events, to participate in conferences, giving visibility to other women in the industry and showcase the fact that they can take on technical roles, they can be leaders. It's important to hear their point of view and to see them represented at all levels. Women in GI forums as well, obviously, and groups. Groups like Women in Copernicus, Women Geospatial Plus, GeoChicas are absolutely fantastic. It's wonderful to have a network of women where you can, raise issues. We can see peer learning. It can, it really helps with the network and increasing access to other women in the sector. I think when I was sort of starting in my career, I would have found this extremely helpful. It can be daunting to network in a group of, especially when you're at the beginning of your career, to go to an event and network with people that seem to be, very, very knowledgeable and, way ahead of you in their career. And, will I say the right thing? Do I know enough? Whereas I think that if you start off with your network, maybe with like-minded people, it definitely helps. It definitely helps to build confidence. As I say, peer learning, all sorts. And I think particularly webinars that focus on women, focus on our needs, and focus on the fact that, you can succeed is just absolutely fantastic. So I'm very, very happy to be involved today. So to conclude, gender balance benefits all. It benefits everything from, your organization for the reasons I've outlined in terms of gender balance and improving organizational performance. So it's everything from performing teams to your bottom line to innovation. So our industry, more women in the GI industry or in the sector will help to reduce the skills gap, which is very evident. I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done here in terms of education and some of the items that Monica has already outlined, policy, etc. And more women in higher paid roles, as Monica outlined also, it improves economic prosperity overall. So higher roles, higher paid roles, senior management roles, tech roles, etc. So as well as that, I think I actually, to paraphrase Natalie from a previous webinar that we were involved in, if we go on the trajectory that we're currently going on, I think it's going to take maybe 108 years for parity. I definitely cannot wait 108 years. I just don't have anywhere near that left. I don't think anyone else in the group can wait 108 years. I think we need to act now. So even with policies and advice in place, I think that action is key and it needs to happen at a pretty rapid pace in comparison to what it is so far. I think, maybe the pandemic, I think for me as a managing director, the COVID pandemic has made me really reflect on, well, what are we doing for all employees in terms of flexibility? It's shown us that we can be way more flexible in terms of, work-life balance, hours worked, etc., than we have been maybe before. I think there's plenty of government policy and European policy out there that, is trying to introduce women back to the workforce, encourage, you know, other types of policy, including paternity leave, parental leave, and shared leave, and stuff like that, that are trying to encourage women back to the workforce. But to be fair, the main thing I think from my colleagues is, first of all, understanding that there is career progression. There are posts available for women. There is definitely career progression for women in the GI sector, and you know, and further ICT, etc. Maybe the way we advertise positions needs to be, you know, we need to reflect on that. You know, I think we briefly discussed this topic yesterday in another group, but I mean, I think, you know, I know it made me really reflect, and I was, you know, thinking about the way we advertise roles, technical roles. We expect women to apply for them, but we don't always say that this is a flexible role. This can be part-time, you know, so that, you know, to encourage more women to go for them. Just, you know, maybe not making an assumption that they know it, you know, maybe making sure that that is very visible in the job advertisement, whether it's internal or external. So as I say, there's plenty of food for thought there. I think, you know, it's fantastic to open up the discussion, and I'm very happy to be part of it and be part of it today. So I'll conclude there, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marion. Quite interesting comments about economic interest of diversity and inclusiveness, but also nice word to go outside of your comfort zone. I think it's a nice leitmotif also for the young people that are around us perhaps today. And I will perhaps leave the floor also to the audience, because that's the objective of the webinar also. It's a lecture, so there are students that are supposed to be around, and perhaps they have questions to either Monica and as professor, or Marion as manager of a company, at least inside a private company. And I just want to remind all of you that there is a poll that is ongoing, and I think it would be interesting for all if we can have the result of this poll after this discussion. So I will just let you a few minutes to answer. And is there anybody who wants to take the floor? Please feel free to open the microphone and say hello. Rufa is among us. You have something to add? It's a joke, but I'm sure you participate.
yeah, I'm here, definitely. I think, yeah. Sorry, let me put on my camera. Can you see me?
Perfect.
Yeah, nothing really in mind today. I think I really appreciated that today we were able to see the economic value of gender inequality, and I think it's something we need to keep reminding ourselves. And like the quantitativeness of this, I believe we also drive policies too. So it was really interesting to see that today, and yeah, I really enjoyed that part of the talk.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Somebody else? I just push a little bit, but I'm sure you have some question to ask to Marion or Monica. Please feel free. Just
yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, it's more of a comment, I guess, more rather than a question for Marion about how you find it networking as a woman in Ireland. I'm from up north, and I think I was very put off from quite a young age actually to stay in Northern Ireland, to go back there to work, just because I never really saw any women in those kind of roles, particularly in the GI sector, and it seems quite, you know, small and refined. And you know, maybe how you find operating that as a woman in Ireland.
Yeah, yes, it is a small sector enough. You know, we're a small country, I suppose, is as an island, you know, it's small enough. I mean, I would network a good bit in the north as well. However, it's probably a little bit more general business environment in the north rather than specific GI work. Whereas I suppose I am in EUROGI, which, and obviously you have AGINI. I don't know if you're familiar with AGINI, which is, no, yeah, I would have been at, like, I would attend their annual conference, but it is only annual and they don't do a whole pile. So I suppose realistically, you know, yes, it's a small enough sector, but there, you know, the way I would see it is in Ireland is this, that you have to start your network. Well, I think anywhere, but you have to start your network from day one. So I would start off with you know, your fellow students for starters, because in my experience, in 10 years time, they may be the other side of an interview panel when you go for a job. They may be somebody that's already in the organization that can give you some information about the organization, see if it's culturally fits what you would like to do, you know, see if the opportunity is there. But also they may be end up in public sector, where if you have, maybe if you're looking at you know, responding to a tender, that you know, you can sort of maybe use your network to see what kind of information, obviously before a tender is published, but see what information there is and they need. So I think network has to start very early, but it can, you know, I think while it is small in Ireland, you will see people repeatedly over again. Like, I mean, I would have worked with people over the last 25 years, and I see people that I've maybe worked with in 1996 quite regularly. I see them at, you know, EUROGI events, for example. I don't know if you were ever at EUROGI events in Dublin.
No,
There's,
never.
you know, it is expanding, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. But I think it's expanding. Like, we have 60 GI professionals, I'd say, in our organization, and we're medium size, you know, so there's it's definitely opening up a bit more, even in terms of Earth observation posts and stuff like that. I think that we have now a team of 9, whereas 5 years ago we had 1, you know. It's opening up a lot of public sector tender work out there as well as private. So yeah. Where are you based now, Ella?
I'm in Salzburg at the minute, doing the CBE Masters.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And you know what? I mean, there's nothing like getting out and about and doing your travel as well. I think it's great. You know, your network there, everybody that you're in college with, etc. So, for, you know, good on you. Hopefully, we'll see you back in Ireland soon.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Thank you.
Good point, to do network. I think it's really important, and it's true that everyone has to do his own network.
Yes.
And we are supportive, so do not hesitate to take contact with us, Marion, Monica, or one of the women in Copernicus. Feel free if you have questions. That's the reason why we do this webinar. So if nobody else has a question, I will have some question, of course.
Natalie, yeah. Sorry, I would like to emphasize that when we are in a network, the goal of once a goal, an objective has been accepted, as a share, has been shared, it is no longer the goal of individuals. It becomes the goal of the network. So it has a disruptive force behind it, supporting it. So please share with us your goals, your aims, because we can share and we can support. And it becomes the goal of the network, no more individual goals.
So Monica, in EUROGI, what is the way to make each of one goals common goals? How do you work together in EUROGI, and how do you think that the gender discussion will fit?
Yeah, thank you. As I said, the EUROGI is a network on network, and usually we after the last year we had a set of portfolio has been established. So we are distributed among this portfolio, even if there is interconnection, cross fertilization among us, obviously, and we have a portfolio about spatial data infrastructure, project proposal, for example, also capacity building and so on. But it is important that we are a network. So this means that and members are very heterogeneous. I mean, a private company, public organization, university, and this allows us to face problems with different points of view that can be merged. So I think that this is the strong point. This is the real force of our networks. And for example, when we deal with the European plan, for example, typically we have a strategical point of view and an operational point of view. And sometimes it happens that this connection is not so evident. And however, inside our network, we can construct this connection between these two levels. So we can phase, we can, for example, propose a wider project proposal. So because several points of view can merge, can be adopted, can be supported, for example. And I am also very confident in our position paper. It will be also for about the gender issue. It will be short, brief, and straight to the point. And EUROGI initially was supported by the Directorate General of the European, the 13, if I remember. And EUROGI still preserves this relationship with the European Commission. So given its European breadth, it can play an important role in bringing the voice of women related in GI domains to the European institution, to ask for more attention, more actions to support women, young girls, for example, in pursue their interest, their professional interest, their passion. So it is important to the network and cross-fertilization among members of EUROGI and whatever groups and so on.
Thank you. As people say, perhaps we have the last webinar next week about the vision of the Commission. So, and we are really happy today that Vera Pinto is already among us. So Vera, if you have something to say, because we discussed about the Commission and Monica just mentioned this, please do not hesitate to take the floor and give a word.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. It's always a pleasure to join this type of discussions, and I'm glad that we are more and more talking about the problems. And I was listening to Monica and what she was saying, and I was thinking that on my presentation next week I might address some of the points she raised. So I'm collecting data for my presentation next week, because it's also important to, in my view, to address the concerns that the citizens have, and to better frame also what we are doing, and even to the future. I usually say that we cannot do policy with Dr. Google. We need to leave our desk and talk to the people and to the citizens and to the companies, and hear their concerns and their problems and what is the reality outside our office. So if we want to do something meaningful, and that's also why I'm here today. I'm listening so that I can also inspire myself to the proposals that I do as equality coordinator in the GDFI. But I'm happy to say that next week I will address some of the questions that Monica raised. So I will try. I don't promise you, you know, the Eiffel Tower or something spectacular, but I'm happy to say that under Horizon Europe we are addressing some of those points already. So there's already some, you know, seeds. I like to call it seeds because you first you put the seed and then you need to cultivate, to nurture, to water so that it can start grow. And the GDFI is also a very, very new DG. So we have like almost 1.5 years only. So and when we're created, we had to face also COVID, like everyone else, of course. But just for you to have in mind, I had new colleagues in my unit, and with COVID, I never met them in person. So I know an email address and a phone number, and that of course doesn't help also to speed up things. But things are changing slowly and a good pace, and so I hope that next week I will be able to share some good news with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are really expecting your presentation of next week and discussion with you about the future and what we can do together, because it's also the goal of our webinar series is to put the seeds and understand where are the seeds also in the GI sector, because there are different experiences around the world that are trying to go in the same direction and having kind of a common strategy. So I think it's really good to work together in that. I will ask another question to Marion, perhaps, for a difficult question for you, Marion.
Oh, thank you.
How can we change all together? Because we are talking about together, of course, something that has to be done by each of us at home, at school, in education, but also at work. How can we change the stereotype of women have less technical skills? And I think in IT and in GI, it's even worse in ICT than geography, because the figures are even lower. Do you have some ideas? What are your ideas?
Well, I think challenge the stereotype that, well, obviously the stereotype isn't correct. Women obviously have just as much ability in terms of technical minds and skills as anyone else, or as men. I think it is difficult. I know that you know, when it comes to like early education or primary schools, children are very, you know, open to everything and anything, and then it comes to a case where it's kind of gets into the teenage years and sort of secondary education, when a lot of young women decide, well, what they want to do with their future, and they don't always pick STEM or ICT or anything like that, and never mind. Well, I suppose in the GI sector, you know, a lot will go, well, some will go into sort of geography or into the arts, and that they make their way to GI that way. I think, you know, it's really, it's about, I suppose, early on in at that stage, maybe, you know, showcasing, making it more visible, showing more women taking on, you know, going to university, showing what can be done, showing the opportunities. Now, even at that, it takes a while for, I suppose, for it to materialize, if it ever does materialize, into, you know, more women going into to study science and technology, etc. So even when women study science and technology, then you have to start into their career. So it's how you market the type of career. So I don't think, you know, the type of career you can have and model the type of career that you can have, because, you know, I know that sometimes the stereotype and the actual reality can be a lot different in terms of the stereotype in what it's like to be, say, a software developer. It's seen as very male dominated, and why would you go near it, you know, when you're a 16-year-old young woman? You know, maybe it's not that desirable, but, you know, showing the opportunity and the full picture maybe will help them to understand and see that there is a lot more in it. There's flexibility, there's management roles, there's, you know, I know when I graduated, first time round when I, obviously I've gone back to education throughout my time because it's lifelong learning. I was in I started with electronic engineering, and it, like, even way back then in the prehistoric era, there was only three women out of about 150 men. So I mean, I obviously changed my path along the way, but I think that maybe it's still fairly similar. I think it's just really, I suppose, highlighting the flexibility, being as visible as possible. It's going to take a fairly concerted effort by everybody to ensure that, there's a higher take up. I think it's everything from policy to maybe incentives, more incentives to study science and technology, incentives in terms of your work-life balance, but that's for everyone, men and women. I don't have the silver bullet answer, Natalie. When I get that, I'll let you know what it is. But I think, schools, like, I know for us as an organization, particularly say in the software development side and that sort of side of our organization, because we have software development team, we have women in that role or in the team. So I know with local schools, say in our office in Cookstown and Tyrone, which Ella will probably be familiar with, we would, work very much locally with the schools, and definitely we 100% make sure that there's a female representative at that talk in terms of our tech or software development or whatever we do. We are involved in, as an organization, we're also involved in setting up a tech apprenticeship, higher level certificate or higher level degree or diploma, I think it is, sorry. So we're involved with that. So basically we take on apprentices and they earn and learn at the same time. So they do 1 day or 1.5 days of tech, and then the rest of the week is with us. So it's a long-term investment. Now, we were hoping that we'd see more women coming into that role, because I mean, and they have, but it still is majority of young men in it. Now, as I said, I definitely spend as much time as possible with my female colleagues, making sure that they're visible at those. Also, even, at industry events, if we have, definitely we have such talented women in technical roles and other roles and management roles. We just try and make sure that they're represented. But also, even if we're going to a third level, we visit third level colleges to promote us as an employer. And we try to make sure that there's the team that go to discuss potential jobs that we have. We try and make sure that it's a balanced team. So there's a woman and a man on the team that go to talk about it. So it's all small perspective as well.
Thank you very much. I think we have to discuss again to increase our ID, and at least to be more visible is the leitmotif that we want to do also in Women in Copernicus, and support the young, as we have Ida in our team of Women in Copernicus who felt a bit alone also in her study. I think she already made the testimony in a previous webinar. I will then close the poll. Just to let you know the result. So I think that the senior professional didn't answer the poll because we have only one participant. So the speakers didn't reply, but we have quite interesting results from the student and the young professional who were not knowing EUROGI. So it was useful for them to understand what you are doing and what you can provide and where you can support also, because as we said, making visibility, networking is really important for that, and they can open some doors through EUROGI. What is the major strengths of this kind of association, or association of association, as Monica said? So the kind of answer that where most responded were networking, exchange, research education, and multidisciplinarity. So I think it's really talking together that is important, and the most important action is really making conference, workshop, and events. And I think this is really clear that it's the place where we can exchange, discuss between us. Of course, because of the COVID, as just said by Vera, it has a bit changed in last year. We hope next year we will open the doors and meet again together. But of course, sharing all these kind of ideas and making women more visible and less minority is really something that we have in common. So I really thank you, all of you. I don't know if someone else wants to take the floor for the final words. If not, I really thank you, Monica and Marion, for your participation. This webinar will be shared on the website, recorded, as we said. And thank you again for Barbara for the organization of this lecture.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for your invitation. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.